Welcome to an evening with Sojourner Truth. I'm your host, Shaniqua Bowden, and tonight we will have an up-close and personal conversation with Miss Truth herself. But before we get started, let's look at what the Kingston community has been doing over the last few years to honor this extraordinary woman. Born in 1797, Isabel Baumfree began her journey of life with the cruelty of being born into slavery. Being an enslaved woman, she endured frequent abuses throughout her life. In 1826, she escaped from her enslaver, John Dumont, into the town of Esopus after being falsely promised freedom. Upon walking to her freedom with her infant daughter, Isabel later fought to free her son, Peter, who had been illegally sold into slavery. In 1828, she walked to the Ulster County Courthouse to get her son back. This resulted in her becoming the first black woman to win a court case against a white man. After this victory, Isabel became an avid abolitionist and women's rights activist, and in 1843 changed her name to Sojourner Truth. Black History Month Kingston has created the Sojourner Truth Life Walk to honor her journey to freedom and independence. This walk includes multiple stops along the path from the town of Esopus and into Kingston and concludes at the Ulster County Courthouse.
Depicting her as a young girl around the age of 11 or 13. At the time, that's when she lived here at the Jug Tavern. The statue also depicts her strength and her experience as a child enduring the brutality of slavery. She's barefoot. She's carrying heavy jugs. And she had to do that. That was her job as a slave child. And I wanted the kids to feel the marks on her back from the whips. The person who did the statue wanted to make sure that she depicted those whips on her back. That's why the dress is torn in the back, so that you could see that. She's carried those scars for the rest of her life.
If colored men get their rights and not colored women, you see colored men would be the masters over the who? The women. Very nice, very nice. And I don't think we want that. So I'm asking for keeping things going while things are stirring. I'd like you to resonate with those messages because they're quite powerful in terms of the equal of the two genders of men and women and men. You can't have one without the other. We must all come together. That's what being part of humanity is all about.
I enjoy that walk so much every year, and I'm really going to miss it this year. However, at the end of tonight's program, I will share with you what we have available instead that will blow you away. And just to give you a taste of what's in store, here's a beautiful video showing parts of Sojourner Truth's path called The Pathway to Freedom, which is produced by Scenic Hudson and Harambe Kingston.
We are here with Scenic Hudson and Harambe with this blessing of the land of Sojourner Truth, a part of her walk and a part of her journey.
Today we honor and celebrate this land where Sojourner Truth walked to freedom. We acknowledge her life, her sacrifice, her determination to be free. For Sojourner Truth, we will stay on the pathway to freedom.
And one fine morning, a little before daybreak, you might have seen me stealing out of the back of the house. I had all that I owned in one arm. I came up on the summit of this high hill.
Scenic Hudson is dedicated to preserving the landscapes of the Hudson Valley.
Sojourner Truth Day is a celebration of Sojourner Truth's journey alongside many other Black women in history. We celebrate her intellect, activism, and courage. We look up to her ability to be strong and daring. Born into slavery, Truth fought not just for her children and herself, but for all of those who were born into slavery and inequality in the U.S. Her journey was long and noble, certainly demanding of statewide recognition. New York was Sojourner Truth's birthplace, location of both her enslavement and her freedom, serving as a remembrance of the horrors of slavery that existed in the North, as well as Truth's work for freedom and equality. Many believe that slavery didn't exist in the North, and this could not be further from the truth. In fact, enslaved people are largely responsible for having built the foundation of where we live today in Ulster County and the city of Kingston. Sojourner Truth Day honors those untold stories from enslaved people who had the strength to live on a day-to-day basis, along with honoring the legacy of our local Black heroes who made strides for liberty on a larger scale. This is why it is more than suitable for Sojourner Truth Day to become a statewide day of honoring. Black activists who fought for equality in the past and those who continue to this day should be celebrated as a staple in American history. We should look to them as a point of reference when greeted with inequality and injustice. We should see Sojourner Truth and other activists as an example of what we can accomplish when we fight for what is right. We hope people everywhere learn Sojourner Truth's story and aspire to be as brave as she was. With Black History Month in February and Women's History Month in March, we wish to begin our efforts for Sojourner Truth Day, November 26, to be acknowledged as a New York State Day of Recognition. In the fall of 2020, the Kingston YMCA Farm Project's youth crew successfully lobbied local Ulster County, Kingston, and Town of Esopus elected officials for a 2020 Sojourner Truth Day proclamation. However, this year we're aiming for a permanent state recognition. In 2005, Michigan declared Sojourner Truth Day on November 26, the day she passed in 1883. We have this work as a model for New York State, the place of Sojourner Truth's birth. Again, we thank you so much for tuning in. And now, an evening with Sojourner Truth.
Good evening, Sojourner Truth. Thank you for allowing us to be in your home for our Black History Month, Kingston. Miss Sojourner, when you ran away to freedom over Chopinique Ridge, you only took your baby Sophia with you. Why did you leave your other children and your husband behind?
Run. I walked to freedom. My baby Sophia, she was still nursing. I had my husband there with my other children, our children. I left them all because I was upset. I had to explain to them that Master Dumont had tricked me. Told me I was going to be free, and I wasn't. So I got them together and I talked with my husband Tom, and I said, I can't be here. I have work to do. So as I walked, I thought of my baby, and I came back. And I picked up my baby because she was still nursing. And she and I walked. My other children were too young to be freed, so they had to stay on the plantation. Tom was too old, and so he was safe enough to take care of him.
Miss Sojourner, I noticed that Sojourner Truth was not your birth name. Were you given that name?
My slave name was Isabella. My ma and pa shortened it to Belle, so everybody knew me on the plantation as Belle. And that was with the Hardenberg Estates. After I walked to freedom, I ended up in New York City. And I worked for a family of Whitings. So I'm in the kitchen one day, and God spoke to me like I'm speaking to you right now, and told me to go east. I told Miss Whiting I had to go. And he gave me the name Sojourner, which means pilgrim. I was to be his mouthpiece, talking truth all over the land. And so I started walking past many farm houses, mostly Quakers. And a lady came to me and she said, "What's your name?" I said, "Sojourner." She said, "Sojourner what?" Well, I didn't have an answer because slaves were always given the last names of their master. And you see, my master was now God. And so I stood there and I looked at her. And I thought for a moment and I said, "Truth. My name is Sojourner Truth because my master, being God, stands for truth." And so that's how I got the name.
Miss Sojourner, did you know there's a statue of you as a child in Port Ewan? At the time, you were a slave girl at Jug Tavern. Could you tell us more about what it was like for you at that time?
If my mind serves me correctly, I was with the Shivers family. The memories weren't all bad. There was some good. There were peoples who didn't know much, but they gave me food, they gave me shelter, and they gave me clothing. And I have to say that my feet was too big for the hand-me-downs that Miss Shiver gave to me. So I walked everywhere barefoot through all kinds of weather. And what I did, I helped with the fishing boats, unloading things. I did some plowing. I did some hoeing of corn. But at night, I slept in the cellar on a cold, hard floor. There was no blankets or anything like that. But I felt blessed.
Miss Sojourner Truth, you have become so famous that there are many statues of you in this nation. In the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, in Battle Creek, Michigan, in Massachusetts, and in New York City. And last year, your life-size image was unveiled right here in Ulster County at the entrance of the Walkway Over the Hudson, a New York State historic park. What do you think about how famous you've become?
Do tell. Well, I guess I must have been doing something right. Haven't seen them all, but I guess they look nice enough that people come from all over, I guess, to see me. That's pretty nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Sojourner, there is a plaque commemorating your successful lawsuit to have your son Peter returned to you here in Ulster County. Was that the only time you ever won a lawsuit?
No, son. No. You see, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was working for the Freeman Bureau. And one day my friend, white friend Laura, and I had been out shopping. And we were tired, and we wanted to get on the streetcar. In Washington at that time, there was only two. One for white folk, the other, Jim Crow, for the Negroes. Now, President Lincoln, of course, was in office there, and he outlawed that bill. And the conductors, they did not discriminate. They just wouldn't stop for the Negroes when they held them down. So Laura and I came up with a plan. She would flag down the streetcar, she would get on, and then I would get on. Flagged the streetcar down, she got on. Everything was fine. I got on, and the conductor was first. Told me to get off. I said no. We had a shouting match, and he took me and slammed me up against the door of the car, dislocated my shoulder. So the company I worked for, Freedmen Bureau, sued the company. Conductor lost his job, and from then on, both whites and Negroes rode the same car, almost like salt and pepper.
Mr. Sojourner, in 1986, the U.S. Postal Service commissioned a stamp in your honor. I do have the document here. It reads as follows. Resolution favoring a commemorative stamp honoring Sojourner Truth. The Education and Cultural Affairs Committee and legislators Sinagra, Petro, and Gibbons offers the following. Whereas the county of Ulster, New York, is the birthplace of one of America's distinguished historical figures of the 19th century, and whereas Sojourner Truth, through her spirited efforts sustained by an unconquerable faith, overcame the slavery conditions in which she had been nurtured to become recognized by millions as a persuasive speaker for women's rights and black freedom. And whereas the human caring exemplified by her life stands as a model for all Americans of all races to respect and emulate. And whereas she is accepted as one of the predominant black figures of the 19th century by virtue of her genius for public speaking and her persistence in the communication of American ideals. Whereas November 26, 1983 marks the 100th anniversary of the end of her productive life. Be it resolved that the Ulster County Legislature urges the United States Postal Service to create a commemorative postage stamp honoring the memory of Sojourner Truth to be released on the 100th anniversary of her death. And further, be it resolved that this organization requests that first day covers be issued at post offices in Hurley, Ulster County, New York, her birthplace, and Battle Creek, Michigan, where her remains now lie. Be it resolved that this organization requests that first day covers be issued at post offices in Hurley, Ulster County, New York, her birthplace, and Battle Creek, Michigan, where her remains now lie, and moves its adoption. Have you seen this stamp? What do you think about it?
Well, that's a pretty good shadow of me. Tickle pink. I don't know all that you was talking about there, but I guess it's all legal. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Sojourner, you play a major role in Black History Month Kingston. We have hosted our Sojourner Truth Life Walk for the past 4 years. This year, due to a global pandemic, we are hosting a community ride that takes people to the places in the area which were part of your life story. Are there any other places you feel are important for us to see?
Son, I've traveled the whole world over. can't say much. But what I can say is that if people are able and they know where these places are, then I think that they should visit with me for a while.
Mr. Sojourner, this past year we witnessed an outcry by people of all races in this nation against the murder of an unarmed black man named George Floyd. This outcry coalesced as the Black Lives Matter movement. Are you surprised to hear about white people being in support against the social injustice of black people?
Son, in my day, I spoke for the rights of women, children, and the Negroes. My day, all lives matter. However, when I hear about the killings of our people, my heart hurts inside. Takes me back to a time where the Quakers helped me many times to get to where I needed to be. They helped me with my legal situation. If the white peoples have finally woke up to the plight of black people, I say good for them. But let us beware of folk who are wolves in sheep's clothing. Trust your gut. Trust God.
Mr. Sojourner, what was the occasion of you giving the Ain't I a Woman speech? Were you trying to address the rights of all women to have the right to vote?
I heard about a convention in Akron, Ohio. I went to that convention, and I was there for 2 days listening to the men's all talking about women's not being equal to men's. Well, I had enough. And so I got up because I was sitting in the back. I got up and I started walking towards Mrs. Gage, who was the president. A lot of booze, a lot of things that you don't want to hear. Was I scared? Yes, I was, because women were not supposed to be talking. And this was a women's convention. Now, black woman gonna come to the front? I could have been killed. but I asked if I could speak. Mrs. Gage, who had seen me, said, all right. I spoke about the women in the North and the Negroes in the South, because they were all talking about rights. And let me tell you, young man, that nowhere were the Negro women so I was talking for all women. May I speak?
Let her speak, Mrs. Gage. It will ruin us. Every newspaper in the land will have our cause mixed up with abolition, and the Negroes, we shall be utterly denounced.
We shall see, we shall see. I beg your silence for a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sojourner Truth.
Whoa, children, where there be so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the white women of the North all talking about rights, the white men will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there, he said that women needs to be kept in the cages and kept over mud puddles and put up in nice places. Well, nobody ever helped me into a cage or helped me over a mud puddle or see to me being in a nice place. And ain't I a woman? I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could walk as much as I wanted to, and I could eat as much as any man when I could get it. Bear the whip too. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most of them sold into slavery. as I see my children being sold, I cry out, oh Lord! But nobody hear me. But my Jesus have a pint, and you have a quote. You'd been mean not to let me have my cup full. Then there's this man right here, preacher man. He say women can't have as much rights as women, 'cause Christ want a woman. Preacher man, you might be leaving, but I got a question for you. Where did your Christ come from? You heard me. Where did your Christ come from? He came from God and woman. Ain't no man had anything to do with it.
Speaking of your most famous speech, one of our local profound actresses, Deborah Zool, has been portraying you for over 20 years, keeping your spirit alive. If you could speak to her now, what would you say to her?
So, if you say that she's pretty good, she's done a good job, then I say God bless her. Keep on keeping on.
Miss Sojourner, I thank you a great deal for allowing us to sit with you this evening. We look forward to doing this again next year.
Well, I want to thank you for thinking old Sojourner is worth talking about. I have seen a lot of things. I have done many things, and many things have been done to me. But I hope and pray that my spirit will live on, and if anybody gets a chance to get over to Battle Creek, Michigan, then go to my resting place and say hello. Thank you for coming into my home today. And with this fire, it's so cold out there, first for me, but thank you for coming. God bless.
This year, you will have a chance to visit a variety of lesser-known locations from our annual walk. From your own vehicle, you will be able to visit other locations of Sojourner Truth's life. We will provide the map and the guide to relive the life highlights of this legendary abolitionist. To find out more details, go to blackhistorymonthkingston.org.